everyone to blue zones, which are areas in the earth where we see lots of longevity. I brought some snacks. They're in the back. So we have a rainbow of vegetables from yesterday's farmer's market in Atascadero.
I'll get some plates, some little plates.
And so lots of local, fresh, organic produce. And then we have some olives that I'm going to pass around at some point if you're an olive lover. I think you have to be an olive lover because they're very powerful olives. It's like the kind of olive where you taste it and you're like, this is an olive, you know, kind of like when you go to Seattle and you're like, this is coffee. So, and then there's a wild yeasted sourdough that has some sunflower seeds in it and some locally grown California white wheat flour that was ground fresh locally. So, let's see. Is anyone familiar with blue zones? I feel like so many people know about blue zones by now, yes. So tell me, like, what is your impression of a blue zone?
Blue zones, to me, they are areas that, well, there's something unique about the areas that people live longer, they live to, 100 or whatever, and they're either super active, they're usually super active, and their diets are pretty consistent with, like, the pictures that you have. So lots of vegetables, possibly whole grain, just depending on what area of the blue zone, the diet varies slightly, but it's always active, and it's always typically, from what I remember, plant-based, but for the most part, but just, and not like working out on a bunch of processed foods. It's not overeating, it's eating till you're 80% full. I know one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good summary.
Is it?
Yeah.
I used to make the chocolate too.
And oh yeah, I recently got a Melanger. Like if you want to invest in a kitchen toy, it cost about $200. They run from like 200 to 400. I got like a medium size version, so you could even get a smaller one for less money. So it's about the same price as a food processor, and it's about the same size as a food processor. It looks like a metal food processor, and inside is a little roller skate that has stone wheels, and it rotates in a circle for however long you leave it on. So you just plug it in. The roller skate starts turning. It's a stone lined bowl and stone roller skate wheels. And then you just pour in your cacao nibs. I got mine at a grocery outlet. So I just bought a bag of organic cacao nibs. If you wanted to go big, you could buy a sack this big for about $50. And then you could do like regional, you could do like if you like a very specific taste from a region, you could get a whole sack for like $50, which is how, chocolate makers actually are able to, make a living out of it. And then you pour in a little bit, however much sugar you want. So ours is about 80%, and I used like a cane juice. You can't really use with the roller skate. You can't really use like a wet sweetener. You wouldn't want to use like maple syrup or dates, or because it would just get really like a sticky mess in there. The stone pores would just get filled. So you just do cacao nibs, a little bit of sugar. You let it roll for 2 days, and then you have chocolate. You just pour it out, and you like sprinkle whatever you want on top. There's like fun molds you can buy. I have some that are different shapes, like peanut butter cup shapes. So.
Is it loud?
I do have to have it in its own room. It has its own room. And I put it in a part of the apartment where there's no tenant underneath.
Okay.
Oh, that's good.
Thoughtful
of you.
But yeah, just like kind of like this like low rumble from a distance, kind of like an impending earthquake. But, I highly recommend it. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. And you can stir in things at the end. It's a great way to get your antioxidants. So, blue zones, where did they begin? It started with Gianni Pez, and he was an Italian physician. He was traveling through the mountains of Sardinia, Italy, examining people, taking their vitals, recording their ages, and he was astounded by the exceptional number of centenarians he found there. And they weren't in the hospital, they were running, biking, celebrating life. And so when he went to a longevity conference in France, he shared all of his findings with the group, this international group. And then that's where he met Michael Palin, who was a demographer, and he said, there must be a mistake. Like, I'm skeptical. There must, because oftentimes what we find in these studies is that it's just that the age was miscalculated. And, because that, 100 years ago, we didn't really record ages in the same way that we do now. So he went and checked it out. And this all started in 1999, so fairly recently. And so what he found was that Pez's findings, he corroborated with them. So then they both got together and they started really doing more in-depth research in that area in Sardinia, in this mountainous region. And they found that the further away they were from the coast, that more isolated and up in the Rocky Mountains they were, that they found more longevity. And so they were creating these concentric circles that they were drawing in a blue pen, and they zeroed in on the smallest area with the highest population of centenarians, and that's why they call it blue zones. So they published their findings, and then Dan Buettner of National Geographic, a great explorer and researcher, got excited about it. He got National Geographic on board. They put forward all their funding, and then they started going around the world looking for other populations. And they found one really close by, Ikaria, Greece. Okinawa, Japan is known for its longevity, so it wasn't hard to identify Okinawa. And then they found one in the Nicoyan Peninsula, Costa Rica. And they really wanted to find one in the United States. And so after some searching, they found one in Loma Linda, California, of all places. So very close to us. So what all of these, they found certain characteristics as all these regions shared. And let's see. Okay, welcome. So let's see. There were characteristics that were shared in their lifestyle, in what they ate, and their environment. They were all very isolated. And so they were basically dependent on what was around them. They weren't getting many things imported in, and they were not affluent populations. So they were not shopping at specialty food stores, and they were mainly growing what they ate or gathering wild plants around them. They weren't able to afford transportation, and oftentimes the work that they did, like herding sheep or goats, through the mountains, the Rocky Mountains, or going and visiting family members around town on a regular basis, taking care of their homes, hand mixing all of their recipes. All of these things help to contribute to their longevity. And they didn't really have medical personnel telling them what to do. So it wasn't that someone was coming in and educating them about the proper diet or the proper lifestyle. It was just that conditions around them, their environment, that sort of nudged them in the direction of healthy habits. And what we've seen is like for example with Okinawa, Japan, it's no longer a blue zone because things have changed there. And what we find is when we take people who are in longevity regions and transport them to another region, or we bring in sort of Western lifestyle factors into their environment, then the longevity disappears. So it's really about these like core shared factors. And let's see. So here are some things that they found about their food. So there's one food that they all share. All of the centenarians in all of the regions around the world, they all eat this one same thing. And so I'll let you guess what it might be.
Carbs.
Vegetables.
Yes and yes. Beans, yes. So they all have their own bean. And we'll talk about like the subtle differences in each one. They also eat breakfast like a king. This is one of my favorite books. This is written by Dan Buettner. He's written a lot of books. And actually, he recently in this book, he was studying happiness. So he started with blue zones, he moved on to happiness, and he named San Luis Obispo as one of the happiest places in the world.
Oh, he's the one that gave that name, huh?
I think it started with Oprah.
Yeah.
He was also in Sunset Magazine, giving this area as one of the best places to go to.
I have written Dan and asked him to make us a blue zone, but he has yet to respond to my email. I think right now they're getting such an influx of people asking about blue zoning that they are giving people the tools more often than coming in and facilitating the process. So they eat breakfast like a king, and then they eat less throughout the day, usually. They cook at home, and so almost all of them have a garden, a beautiful garden. They're growing a lot of plants there, and then also they know all the edible plants around them. So they'll go hiking through their neighborhood and pick all kinds of wild greens. And then they have a saying called in Okinawa, hara hachibu, and that means, as you said, Michelle, to when you're about 80% full, that's when you stop eating, because our bodies, it takes a while for our bodies to register that we've had enough. And really, it's so amazing when you think about it that like our bodies are able to so accurately communicate to us what our needs are. You know, we could try to estimate with calculations and mathematical calculations what our needs are, but it's still not exact, you know, but when we really listen to our bodies and when it's telling us like, oh, you're getting to be almost full, then that's the good time to sort of like step away and then wait 20 minutes and see how we feel. And usually after those 20 minutes we'll find that we're like happily satiated, and that way we can have more energy, because when we are digesting, our blood is pulled to digest and pulled away from our heads, so we can't stay awake as well. So that's one of their practices. They eat with their family and friends. They take their time when they eat. They really enjoy the meal, and they're not letting themselves be distracted by, often like we do, like we're driving and like eating or watching television, and they enjoy their food. They really celebrate. So if you look at what they're eating, what they all share in common, it would be that about half of what's on their plate are non-starchy vegetables. These are wild and plants from their gardens, and we find them in a lot of different colors. And all of those colors are nutrients. Each color indicates a different phytonutrient, plant nutrient, that usually has antioxidant properties, and those are linked with longevity and help us protect us from cancer, give us energy, reduce pain and inflammation in our bodies. Then you also know the snacks are full rainbow. So that's often like something that if I were to work with clients, like one of the easier things to tell them is like, they say, what can I do, you know? And the answer is really simple. Eat lots of plants and shoot for the rainbow, you know? Get as much color as you can on your plate. And then it's interesting in our culture, like usually our starches are very brown. It's like different shades of brown. But there are so many varieties of vegetables and grains and tubers. So we have purple sweet potatoes that they have in Okinawa. They also eat orange sweet potatoes. And then you can get corn that's all the colors of the rainbow on one pod or on one ear. And you can order the seeds online and grow them in your garden. Or you can just order the seeds. I like to order them. And you can make them like they do in Nicoya, Costa Rica. So you just dump the corn into a pot. You pour in some water. You sprinkle in a little bit of the mineral lime. You can buy pickling lime online. And so it's just basically a base that will make the nutrients in the corn more accessible and the corn more digestible. So you let that soak overnight. You know, you can simmer it a little bit if you want to speed up the process. And then you just put it through like a grinder, like a juicer or a food processor. And you can make tortillas out of it. And that's how they make tortillas in Costa Rica. By like the mineral lime that I mentioned, it's calcium hydroxide, so it's very high in calcium. And that's part of why people in those regions don't get broken bones, and they're able to be independent for longer and be active for longer. They don't really get as many cavities there, and I think that's in large part because they make these wonderful tortillas. So you can make them too. And there's all kinds of delicious fruits that grow. There are, especially right now, so many fresh berries at the market. And then there's so many different kinds of grains and seeds and nuts of all different colors. You know, we say black beans, but really they're like purple. And they have all these beautiful antioxidant anthocyanins in them. So, I mean, part of it is like that we're so lucky in this region. We have such a variety, and so it's really hard to get bored, you know. So going into each region, let's see, Sardinia, Italy. So their bean was mainly the fava bean and the chickpeas. Italy and Greece are fairly similar. They both share chickpeas. And they also have black-eyed peas. They both have sourdoughs, like the one that we made. Really, if you mix together a grain and water, it will naturally ferment. And so because we haven't historically had refrigeration, cultures, when they mix those two together, they found over time that their grain product that they cooked up would be a lot fluffier and more delicious if they let it sit for a couple days and let it ferment. So we can do that with our bread and make delicious flat bread. And it makes it more digestible, it lowers the glycemic index, adds a lot of nutrients. Here are some of their vegetables, and another one of their proteins are almonds. They harvest a lot of wild greens, as they do in Greece. And they have something called Canina wine, which is their local wine. It's supposed to be really high in phenolics because it grows in a very rocky, sort of distressed climate, and that causes the plant to develop more antioxidant nutrients. Yes.
The milk thistle,
Yeah.
they eat that. What is that? Like, I'm envisioning maybe something different than what I think.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's a plant.
Okay.
You can make a tea out of it.
I had a supplement.
Okay.
They make it a supplement for your liver.
Right.
Is this the same plant that like the monarch butterflies, or am I thinking of something else?
I think you're right.
Okay,
No,
maybe.
I wanna
don't
say
know.
yes.
Monarch butterflies
Okay.
are.
We can Google it.
Okay, sorry.
We have the
I
whole
didn't know.
internet.
Yeah.
We're supposed to-
That's
and
milkweed.
so
That's
Okay,
milkweed.
milkweed, that's what I'm
Milkweed's
thinking.
a
Okay.
different species.
milk thistle. Okay, milkweed,
Okay,
milk
got
thistle.
it.
Milk thistle
Sorry,
is like
I-
an herb that they grind up for, like you said, teas or it's in supplements to help your liver. For some
Right.
reason.
And one of the things that they find is most often when we can find the fresh source of ingredients, it's going to have the optimal benefit. Supplements, unfortunately, are not really regulated in this country. And in order to make something shelf stable, then we have to, process or refine it in some way. And we don't necessarily know, they're not regulated through that process unless someone raises a red flag later down the road after it's already on the shelves. So I really encourage people to eat the whole plant, the fresh live plant if they can, or dried in a tea.
Just as a side note on that, you may already know this, but I subscribe to a service, it's a nonprofit, where they study the contents of supplements and publish.
Oh,
And they're nonprofit and they don't take any money. They're like the
Really?
consumer reports for supplements. And then they tell you which ones have lead in them, for instance,
Yeah.
or are not exact content or like deleted, like you
do
said.
you want to share what their name
Yeah,
is?
it's called
Consumer Labs?
I have it on my phone.
Oh,
It's
okay.
consumer something, but I can't, it's not consumer advocates, but it's definitely for doing that, consumer lab.
I belong to Consumer Lab. I think they have like a little, they usually have a little membership fee, but it's well worth it.
Yeah, if
well
I'm gonna
worth
keep
it.
them, I pay for it, you know.
It's wonderful. They really do good research on supplements. So, and then Japan, their bean is the soybean. They have edamame, they have tofu. It's interesting, when I first heard of longevity in Japan, of a blue zone in Japan, I was thinking, oh, sushi and lots of fish, rice. And then I found out that's really not the case. Okinawa is different. So Japan is a long country. And so there's different climates throughout the length of Japan. And in Okinawa, it's down by the equator, so it's really warm there. They don't have a lot of rice growing in their region. It's drier. And they mainly are growing and harvesting sweet potatoes in their gardens, and they have shared gardens or farms. And they they cultivate them together. They help each other in their work. And they do have a little bit of rice because it is, the national grain, but it's mainly brown rice that they eat, which is not as prevalent as in other regions. And mainly they eat their bean as tofu. So other veggies, bitter melon. You can actually buy bitter melon at farmers market on Saturday. There is an Asian farm, and they have these beautiful long beans, which are like green beans, but they're like this long, and they're like more tender and sweet. They have all kinds of medicinal plants, like leafy plants that you can use in your cooking. They have little Thai bird's eye chilies, so you can make Thai curry paste from scratch. And most of us use the Thai curry paste out of the jar, but it can be so spicy. But if we use our local chilies, like the red pasillas and the bell peppers and the red jalapenos, we can make an amazing, and that farm also has lemongrass. So you can just throw it all in your food processor and make this amazing curry paste and make your own curry from scratch. Shiitake mushrooms. They have so many different kinds of mushrooms. Specifically, they eat a lot of shiitakes. Shiitakes, they're adaptogenic, and so they help regulate our immune system, and they help. They've been shown to reduce the risk of cancer, help with the brain and with mood. So mushrooms are a wonderful longevity food, as well as seaweed. And they eat all different kinds. iodine is high in seaweed, in seafood, and that can really boost the thyroid, give us a lot of energy, and they have so many minerals. Seaweed is the lowest on the food chain of all of the seafoods, and so it's lowest in heavy metals that would be potentially harmful, that we'd find higher up on the food chain in like large fish. And they also have turmeric, which is highly anti-inflammatory, which can reduce like pain in the body. Most pain in the body is related to inflammation. And we talked about Costa Rica. Their bean is the black bean, and they nixtamalize their corn, their maize. They eat a lot of fruit. Love fruit, all different kinds and colors, and they like usually have tortillas with every meal, but they also have sweet potatoes, which we also found in Japan, yams. And then there's Loma Linda, California. So Loma Linda's not isolated. It's right in the middle of a metropolis. So why do you think Loma Linda is a blue zone? What are your guesses? Yes.
Well, because of their lower disease rates and their longevity, and I mean, not exactly because it matches exactly what the other ones are, but because of the disease rates.
They have community, it's a community.
Yes.
They're a very tight community.
Yes.
That's what I've read, at least.
Right.
I wouldn't say they're isolated though, like you're.
They're not isolated, they're stores.
Yeah, but they have big farms for the trees and the nut area too back in there, which would be probably related to this. They're big on growing avocados. I see that on the list.
Yeah, they love their Tex-Mex.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in Loma Linda, California, they're specifically speaking about the Seventh-day Adventists, and so their religion is Seventh-day Adventists believe in being vegetarian for the most part. That could take different forms for different, groups, and so their religion calls that they go for walks every weekend with their families out in nature. So they go for these like nature walks. They have a really strong sense of community. They really take care of each other. And they have these like community groups. In Japan it would be called a moai. And so in your youth in Japan, you would be paired with several other people, and you would basically take care of each other no matter what. And if someone's house burns down, if someone needs help harvesting their crop, those people are obligated by tradition to come and help. And they're always working together, so you have this sense of security and well-being that, that someone will always come and help you. And then if someone has a windfall of fortune, then they also share it with the group. So you're ensured that all of you will have what you need. And the same with those in Loma Linda. And so they take little pieces from all these different cultures. They're like us, they eat from a lot of different, regions. They're inspired by a lot of different cuisines, but they are almost entirely plant-based. So let's look at the other factors for a moment. After these blue zones were identified, they thought, hey, now we know what these shared characteristics are. Let's make a blue zone somewhere in the United States. And they started creating them. They created one in Minnesota. They created one also in the beach cities just down south from here, in Redondo Beach, Huntington Beach. And they brought in a whole team that were there for several years, helping facilitate this process. The town was on board and working with the team. They approached it from what's public? What's your
Public health?
yes? From a from public health perspective.
Yes.
And then they also went into the workplace and the schools and the home. And there were members of the team going to the local markets and making sure, helping them blue zone their grocery stores. And they went into restaurants so that there were blue zone approved entrees, like menu items. There, in the checkout lines, there were fruits and vegetables. And in the schools, the vending machines were all healthy options. There's actually a company that I found, and they will bring it to your school if you wanted, and just restock it for you, and have all kinds of like healthful plant-based options. So they also did that for the workplaces, and then had incentives for wellness for their employees. They made sure that there were spaces where people could commute by foot or running or by bicycle. And then they had outdoor spaces where they could be physically active for free. So they wanted to make sure that all of these things were available to everyone. And they wanted the town centers to also promote health as well, and to promote like pedestrian ease of travel. So I have a few videos, and I thought we'd pick one to watch together. So it's kind of like a choose your own adventure. So we have us in Sardinia. This is the longest living family in the world. And this is the soup that they eat almost every night. Then you can see a tortilla factory in Nicoya, Costa Rica. They make tortillas for the local hospital. And it shows how they make them. Then this one's really short. It's their special flatbread in Sardinia, which the sheep herders take with them on their journeys. And Bakery of Greece, they have honey. It talks about how they raise their honeybees.
I want to see the first one.
She didn't even finish.
Oh,
sorry. That's okay.
No, this is, yeah.
The Melis minestrone.
This is the meal that the longest lived family in history ate almost every single day of their lives.
Look at his hands. They're in good shape for a 91-year-old.
You're seeing 500 years of wisdom concentrated into one bowl right here.
Oh, does it smell good?
The beauty of this recipe is its simplicity. This will cost less than $1 per serving. Just about anybody in America could enjoy something like this.
Cipolle,
Onion, of course.
And how many zucchini?
2 zucchine, 2 zucchini.
No exotic spices. This is all from here. Celery. These are the greens. They're sort of like beet greens. Tomatoes, potatoes, salty cheese. It's just a condiment. In the winter, they'll put a little bit of pig skin. You're looking at pig skin. But it's a tiny amount, and not like bacon or a big chunk of sauce.
And what about butter? Is there butter
No
in there?
butter in there.
No butter.
No butter, no. And then, of course, the beans, which I think this is the secret of longevity right here, these little beans. If you're eating a cup of beans a day, it's probably adding about 2 years to your life expectancy.
A cup of beans a day will add 2 years to your life expectancy?
It's based on one study that was done in the Mediterranean. They find that people who are eating about a cup of beans today are also living about 2 extra years. And we don't know if that's because there's something special in beans, the high fiber, or if because you're eating beans, you're therefore not eating pork chop.
But whatever it is, it seems like a pretty good way to go.
Eating beans is a really good bet for Americans. One of the big secrets Blue Zones teach us is how to make beans taste good, and we learned that with the minestrone.
Instead of cheers, they say 100 years and more.
So you were wondering about lectins, and that's sort of like the hot topic right now. So there's like most of these things, like there's some truth to it, and then there is also some fiction. So if we, let's say we grew some beans in our garden, some like, not green beans, but kidney beans or black beans, and we, invited over our friends, and we thought like, let's go raw. You know, it's warm out. Who wants to cook those beans? Let's just eat them straight out of the pod, you know, and put them in our salad, and we'll make like you know, like a little like raw, you know, spread with them. And so apparently this actually happened historically in ancient country. There's documentation of it. And so they had this giant feast with all of these raw beans, and they were horribly ill, and some of them died.
Yeah.
And it was from lectin poisoning, because if we don't cook the beans, then the lectins don't break down. There are other nutrients in food that impair digestion and are not beneficial for us in high amounts. But those things that we find in beans and in whole grains, those lectins, those disappear when we cook them, when we sprout them, when we do the things that we traditionally do, when we enjoy them.
You can sprout it out of them too.
Yeah, yeah. And there's actually a delicious sprouted hummus you can get at Lassen's and other health food stores. All different flavors.
I thought it was a temperature thing, but I didn't know. So sprouting works.
Yeah, it's like moist heat. Because you couldn't really roast the bean either. But I mean, if they're dried, then it'd be really hard to eat.
So it is a toxin. It is poisonous.
Right, right.
But it's important to the plant though, so
It's
not
your
like.
plant protection.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea. It
Right.
protects the plant from
And-
being eaten.
And what's interesting is like a lot of these bioactive compounds, these colorful antioxidants, they're actually they think that the plants develop them as pesticides to stop others from eating them, like garlic. You know, anything from the lily family, the onions. They're very like powerful. You know, you could take raw garlic juice and put it on your skin, and you could give yourself a burn. But at the same time, that when we mix it in with food, like we do traditionally when we make a delicious pesto, or we make like a marinara sauce, then that same component in the garlic is having an amazing like antiviral, antifungal, antibacterial effect that's going to protect us from getting sick, and provide a lot of food for our gut flora, which is going to help us stay healthy. And that brings up another really interesting piece of this, is that because they're eating so many plants, 95% of what they eat is plants, they are getting all of this fiber. And so we don't find fiber in animal products, we only find it in plants. And that soluble fiber is what feeds our gut flora. And what we're finding is that our gut flora, I mean, their cells outnumber us. So in a way, are we a vehicle for them? I don't know. But they are at the command center of a lot of different systems in our body. They help with our weight, our satiety, with whether we'll develop long-term illness, with how our genes are expressed. So we may have a family history of something, and related to what we're eating, that will determine whether that gene is turned on or off. And if we're pregnant, that'll determine whether that gene can be turned on or off in our child, potentially. And I have all kinds of wonderful studies that, if you want to read more about it, I have. And I have the research about lectins in beans, too, if you're interested.
But like what? Like for me, I can't have garlic without a severe stomachache. What is that? Is it just too much for my system? Or I can't figure out, all these things are supposed to be so good for you. You know, as I get older, it's getting worse.
Right.
No gluten, no dairy, no garlic, no onions.
So you're finding yourself that you're more
Yes.
sensitive over time.
Always.
Absolutely,
All
yeah.
those good foods, you know?
So part of what can happen is that there can be something in our diet that we're not tolerating well, and that can kind of inflame things, and then we'll start having issues with other foods too. I've cooked for groups of children with celiac disease. They can't do any gluten whatsoever, and when we feed them a diet that's completely gluten-free, then we find that some of their other sensitivities diminish over time, because the inflammation is reduced in their GI tract, and things sort of quiet down, and they're able to tolerate more foods. Also, the order that you eat foods in, it can be important. Starting the meal with a soluble fiber that's going to be soothing and move slowly and kind of coat the GI tract. So we'd find that in oats, in beans, in some grains, in fruit. So starting the day with oatmeal, or starting the meal with like a starch, like a soothing starch, can be helpful. And then having the salad at the end of the meal. You might find that you can tolerate roasted garlic more than raw. You might find that if it's mixed into something that will kind of buffer it a little bit, you're better able to tolerate it. And we're all different. So part of it is we really need to listen to our bodies. Another talk I could potentially do in the future, if there's interest, is something called like the elimination diet, which helps us to identify food sensitivities and food allergies, so that we can learn more about ourselves and help, sort of soothe the GI tract and help us eat a broader range of foods. So, and I'll put this out there, I offer free nutrition consults to students and faculty and staff. So if anyone is interested in meeting one-on-one, I can give you a personal consult. Also, for students, we have NEAT. Sherry, do you want to talk about NEAT for a moment?
NEAT stands for Nutrition Education Action Team, and it's based out of the Student Health Center, and it's free nutrition consultation from student to student. It's peer education. So students of ours that have gone to our nutrition program, that have done at least 3 classes and done peer counseling training, mental health training, and been trained to specifically do this, will give peer counseling to other students in the health center. Anybody can sign up. They're getting regular appointments right now. Yeah, so it's really picked up.
You have a fly? I teach an anatomy here, so a lot of my students are definitely interested in nutrition, so I could put a flyer up in our lab.
Yeah, I can send it to you.
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, I'm Lisa Schicker.
Okay.
Yeah, and you're offering free consults to all of us?
Absolutely. I do
We
them
need
for
to
a lot
talk
of.
to you about the wellness committee and talk to you about doing some things for us.
Yes.
Then
Oh, that'd be
if
fun.
you have the time to do that.
I would love
do
that.
Mm-hmm.
So bringing it into our own kitchens, how do we bring like these ideas into our own lives? So this is like the old school. These were actually, if you'll notice, they were created in Loma Linda by the Seventh-day Adventists. They actually still serve like some of these similar products, like on occasion in their hospitals, the Loma Linda Hospital, which is well known for their excellent medicine. But it's interesting, like how far we've come, and so this was the idea of what plant-based eating was like 50 years ago. But now, like, we have so many wonderful convenience products. So many of us are short on time, and there's so much at our disposal that can help us eat healthier very simply. Really, I mean, the easiest way is yesterday I went to the farmer's market in Tascadero, and I walked through the farmer's market, and I picked what looked delicious, and then I prepared it in a very simple way. A lot of vegetables and fruits right now, they're like baby size, so you don't even have to cut them or prepare them. You just eat them right out of the bag or the package, and it makes healthful eating really easy. Sherry shared some beans with me on the train the other day and I was talking to my Italian friend who says that these rind sort of lima bean looking beans, that they eat them in bars all the time. And it's like an appetizer in restaurants, and you can just snack. So you can snack. They're making all these bean snacks where it's just like roasted chickpeas or brined beans, and it makes it so simple. There is also some great new products. So now we have a beautiful almond cream cheese product. They're making them more like they do traditional dairy products, which make them taste a lot better. We even have a local cheesemaker now. What's the name of the
company's Veemery.
Yeah.
Veemery.
The Veemery, and she sells at farmers. There's also going to be like a local producer market opening over in the barn next to Trader Joe's, like across the way.
Like,
Yeah.
it reminds me like of the Boston Public Market.
Yes.
They're gonna have, yeah.
I am so excited, and she's going to have a shop there. So we'll all be able to go to the Veemery and taste these cheeses. And they're so easy to make yourself too. That could be a whole other talk in itself. There's all different kinds of sauces. There's this beautiful almond sauce in all different flavors. They're making, if you want a treat, if you want a chip, they make whole grain chips with beans and rice in them. And another great product that I love is Miyoko's cheese. And this is a cookbook I really love. Julia Piat, or am I saying it correctly?
I think so, yeah.
She's done a whole cookbook on how to make cheese from plants. And then this is her family's cookbook. And it not only has some of her cheeses in it, but it has a whole bunch of other delicious whole foods recipes called The Plant Power Way. It's co-written with her husband Rich Roll, who's an endurance athlete. I don't even think that adequately describes who Rich Roll is, because he did 5 Ironmans,
Ultra endurance athlete.
5 days, yes, 5 islands of Hawaii. And then, so I mean, this is what, plant-based opulent living can be, and it's so easy. And we have a nut cheesy sauce, got our olives, our avocado, our tomatoes. And you can see how easily you can throw this together and how colorful it is, and all different kinds of wraps. We can do bowls, burgers,
Nicely sliced avocado.
sushi. I also teach Nutrition 232, the lab. We're making a lot of these things in my lab. So
Is that sweet potato in the sushi?
yes. So we made a whole food sweet potato tempura, oven roasted tempura. We had avocado and sesame seeds and sticky shortcake and brown rice, and it's all so easy to prepare. Especially on weekends when we have a little more time and we want to relax and make something in the kitchen. These are peri peri skewers.
Say that again?
Peri peri. And then Indian, Italian flatbread. This is one of my favorites, especially for potlucks. And then we can do this is one of a fun new thing that they're doing with food.
A lot of restaurants are doing that now.
Yeah.
Great.
So I'll take cauliflower and cauliflower florets. You can just grab some from the, they'll sell them in bags already cut up if you want even. And then you mix a little whole grain flour and water together. You dip it in that. You can season it with whatever seasonings you like. And then roll it in some breadcrumbs. I like to just put a couple slices of sprouted grain bread in the food processor, and I just pulse it till it becomes crumbs. And then I just dip it in the crumbs, and then you put it on a baking sheet, put it in the oven, and it magically becomes delicious buffalo wings. You can dress them with some hot sauce, make them beautiful, vibrant orange color. Not everyone likes the spicy stuff, so you can choose your adventure. And then breakfast. You can even have dessert for breakfast. Have a chocolate smoothie bowl with bananas and peanut butter. Oh my god, so easy, so easy. All different toppings, endless possibilities. when I'm feeling like I'm gonna get sick, when I feel like my immune system's dropping, or maybe I stayed up too late working, I love the next day to get a green juice. And it's best that we eat a whole plant as we find it in nature, because our bodies have evolved eating the food around us in its more natural states. And we find that our bodies do better when we eat them as we find them in nature. But, so right now, you know, if you were to think about like, okay, what would be healthiest for me to eat, a salad, a smoothie, or a juice? The healthiest option would be a salad. I'm losing my batteries. And then the next healthiest option would be a smoothie, because no one's able to chew that finely, right? And then the least healthy option would be a juice, because you've taken out all the fiber. But for people with compromised immune systems, for people who have autoimmune diseases, who have really high nutrient needs, especially like antioxidant needs, a green juice now and then can be a real boost. And so it's no roots, no fruits, not sweet. Kind of like the more it sort of kicks you while you drink it, the better probably. As long as it's not giving you a tummy ache or you know, upset. And so usually it's like a dark green and some kind of fresh herb, some lemon or citrus with the peel on. A lot of the phytonutrients are in the peel, in the white part, the bitter white part. And some ginger, maybe some fresh turmeric, and maybe a little garlic if you're not going to be going to a meeting. And that is amazing for stopping a cold straight in its tracks, and like giving you so much energy. And then Aquafaba makes delicious desserts. Who's heard of Aquafaba?
I love the name. I mean,
Just the word itself cracks me up.
So better than bean water, right?
it's better than garbanzo bean juice.
Okay, yeah.
That's what
I like the
Okay.
word.
Yeah. My whole life, you know, it's like you open the can of beans and then it's filled with like horrible slime, and you throw that away, and then you use the bean and you wash all of the slime off of the beans. And then someone said like, wow, that really looks like egg whites. What if I took an egg beater and just see what happens? And then they're like, oh, a beautiful meringue. And all of plant-based cuisine is transformed, and now we have the ever so glorious lemon meringue pie made from Aquafaba. And I like to put it in my plant-based ice creams, in my smoothies, and it's full of soluble fiber, so it's wonderful for my gut flora. It's very soothing for my GI tract. It makes things fluffy and nice. And so here are some places that I love. We have so many wonderful markets. Sprouts is going to be opening up soon. They're renovating. They're in the Madonna Plaza by the Saturday Farmers Market. They're going to be coming soon. The renovations are taking a while, as always.
Is that the one that's in a big, it's a big building, used to be some kind of a,
Where that big clothing store was.
yeah.
Forever 21, I think.
There's gonna be a lot of
Forever
buildings
21?
in there. They were talking about that the other day, how
Oh my
many
goodness.
different shops are gonna go in there.
What's Sprouts like? I don't know Sprouts.
It's kind of like if you put Bonds and the Co-op or Bonds and Whole Foods together. It's like somewhere in the middle.
Will it compete with Trader Joe's?
Well,
Kind of different. More compete with maybe Whole Foods.
I
and Lectins.
think yeah, it's like a higher tier, a higher cost tier than Trader Joe's, definitely.
And has
Um,
produce, which Trader Joe's is.
Yeah. Yeah. There's also a co-op that's starting in North County. So if you live in North County, that's up and coming. They're in the works of creating that. So that'll be happening in the next couple of years. The passive food co-op. And yeah, I have our wonderful Slow Natural Foods co-op here.
I love it, yeah.
I need to start going.
They do so much local food. It's amazing. And they carry wild fermented yeasted bread from Paniol now. and they started bringing it in twice a week. So, and here's various Trader Joe's plant-based product hauls. So you can see, like, you can come home and you can just, these are all ready to go, all ready to eat.
I think so.
And they even have a list of their products. And then our farmers markets. I like to send students to Mount Olive Farm. They have all kinds of samples that the students can try. They make their own olives. And they're like the first organic market at the farmers market. First organic stall at the farmers market. And then we have these wonderful eateries. What's your favorite plant-based eatery? Out of curiosity.
Shine.
Shine, yes.
And Bliss, I mean, I like Bliss too, but Shine's been around longer. Where's Shine? Morro Bay.
Yeah, Shine's in Morro Bay. And every time I go there, I'm like eavesdropping on conversations. And there's usually people from all over that have come there because they hear such amazing things about it.
What's your favorite?
I love Shine a lot. And the Vegetable Butcher is fun because they have the vegan tacos, I think, and they do a lot of produce from the farmers market. So, you know, it's like we don't want to always go to the same place because we kind of get bored.
Okimomo's good. Have you been to Okimomo?
Okimomo!
Yes, Okimomo. I
I
like
like
that's a
the kale
nice quick
salad.
one.
Yeah.
Where's that?
Kale salad's really good.
I love their tempeh, their noodles, market veggies, and then their teriyaki tempeh.
Yeah.
It's affordable.
It's almost like right next to the San Luis Obispo Fire Department.
Where-
That
It's a good
intersection
place.
where it's
Rib
like,
line or something.
Yeah.
It is.
it's a rib.
Yeah.
On the way to the co-op. Yeah, it's like right before you start going up the hill. And then God is Good is just opened in Morro Bay. They're open at like 6:30 in the morning. So Shine doesn't open till 9. They're like very languidly getting up, and they're already making salads and juices. They have a garden that they harvest their produce from. Delicious salads. Planted. I haven't been to Planted yet, but it's
Where's
on
that?
my bucket list.
AG. There's another one AG that's new too.
Casey Cakes, they are cashew based, and they have their holiday pumpkin cheesecakes out now. They're selling them at the farmers markets, and they're so good. I sampled it yesterday when I was picking up the veggies, and she just had a baby, and she is developing even more products. She just started a cheese line, and which are delicious. She's only selling them the cheeses at the farmers markets right now, and they are so good.
How many hours a day do you think you spend on food? Thinking about food.
All day.
Investing
All day.
in food.
And I eat plants, which allows me to eat all day. So I'm just constantly eating and reading about food.
Oh my God.
It's like a vicious cycle.
They went out of business.
And then these are places that aren't entirely plant-based, but they do have some fun options.
They still have the North County original one, Thomas Hill.
Yes,
Yeah.
in North County, they still have Thomas Hill, and they do very seasonal things.
How about the wellness kitchen? When I teach 205,
yeah.
I get the wellness kitchen information. I'm still getting it actually.
The Wellness Kitchen has delicious food.
It does, really good.
Yes.
Where's
And
that at?
it's in
Templeton?
Atascadero or
Okay.
Templeton or something, one of those places. And
We know
I
people
took
say
a
there's
group of students there last time I talked to a board. It was really interesting because they focus on health issues. You know, they were having, that day they were having a thing on cancer. And
yeah.
the foods that were related to healthy.
Yeah. The Wellness Kitchen, I love their food, and I also want them to work on their nutrition information. I don't think they have a dietitian right now helping them with that component, and I think that would help to clarify and expand their nutrition component. So
They have some information they give, I think it's at Sierra Vista.
yeah, They're so integrated in the community. I love it. So,
Tell us about those little guys. What are they up there? They're not plant-based, are they?
let's see, which ones are plant-based?
I don't know. Well, the panda eats
Panda, definitely. So, any other questions? Yes.
I think you went over the healthy benefits of olives, but I want to hear about that. I'm
Oh, yes,
craving,
olive
I'm craving
tasting.
Greek olives lately. I can't get enough Greek olives. What's up with that? What nutrient am I missing?
You have to watch this. Watch the video to see all this stuff.
We talked about like the healthiest forms to eat things in, and research is showing us more and more, the more that we do, that we really want to eat foods in their whole form. So people are thinking about this. We've historically thought about it in terms of like flour and sugar, but now we're also thinking about it in terms of oil. And so the more that we learn about oils and fats, lipids, the more we're realizing that we don't, that it's better for us, instead of eating olive oil, to eat olives. And we can puree the olives into a tapenade. We can,
I use them on bruschetta. I like
Yeah.
olives grinded up with some garlic and a couple of greens.
I'll
They're
pass
really
these
good as a
around.
bruschetta.
bruschetta is that's a wonderful way to enjoy things. And so we're also finding ways to cook without oil. There's dry roasting, dry sauteing. There's all these wonderful techniques that we could actually do a whole other class on. It should be super fun. I could get up here with my my
Cooking
Cooking.
demonstration stuff.
yeah, my cooking demo gear, and we could do some cooking without oil. Because a lot of us, it's become a crutch, you know, like, I don't know how will I cook the food without the oil? But there's so many options. How will I make the dressing without oil? Blending, you can blend in roasted vegetables. You can blend in fruit like mangoes. You can blend in nuts and seeds, and all of those things will make it really creamy without having to use a refined oil. And if we do want to use a lovely oil, like let's say we went to one of the wonderful olive oil pressers locally, like in Paso, and we got their fresh olive oil from fresh olives that were just harvested, and it's full of phenolics, it's bright green. We would just want to enjoy it in the quantity that we would have if we were eating the olives. So that's sort of the rule of thumb. If you want to indulge in a refined food, try to eat it in the volume that you would find it in a whole food, and then if you're eating like a processed food, like a smoothie where you grind up the fruit or the food, then try to drink it at the rate that you would be eating the whole food, which is very hard for me because I'm just like down that. Here, I'll pass around the olives.
I just want you to open a cafe in our division. That's really what I'm hoping for. I just want to pay you to do this. I don't want to learn how to do it. I'm going to be honest. I feel overwhelmed right now.
Thank you, AC.
Thank you, everyone.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
What do you feel about those sprays instead of using a little bit of spray? That's not good, huh?
Oh, is it like spray oil?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's like not for the faint of heart.
Because I had to take this class at
Really
USC
intense stress.
on, when my husband was there, you know, and we couldn't have anything with canned foods, couldn't eat anything that wasn't, hardly anybody, I mean, it was so specific, you know? So I started using the spray that they suggested in small volume.
So it's like an oil spray, like kind of like Pam, but with better quality oil, I would assume.
They were real picky what he ate, so.
Oh yeah.
It was hard.
Like,
Well,
I've seen those at grocery outlet, for instance, they have avocado, white truffle, and olive, and that's all that's in there. There's supposedly nothing but the oil.
Yeah.
You can get a fine mist versus a glob.
What I like is if I'm going to use an oil, I'm incredibly picky. When we create an oil, it's the healthiest oils are delicate, but you need to protect them from heat and from light. And so when we cook with an oil, we're heating it, and we're compromising the health of that oil. That said, oil adds a lot of flavor. It can allow us to like enjoy the food in a way that, you know, has like traditional memories for us. So what I like to do is they also have these at grocery outlet. They'll have empty oil misters, and so you can you can pump it and then spray it, and you can put anything you want in there. So I actually have a bottle in my office. I was like, I can only bring so much. I'm gonna leave it in there. But it's from Kyler Ridge. They're olive oil producer. And so I bought a pressed oil, and then I can spray it on my veggies. And I also like, if I'm going to use a refined oil, then I'll use like Spectrum. I'll use a company that uses pressing methods. What I don't want to use is like a company that would extract the oil with something like hexane or like a carcinogenic compound that they then like heat off, because it can cause a lot of inflammation and issues in our body. Really, it's like every 8 years we're recreating our bodies out of what we eat entirely, right? So, and every cell has a phospholipid bilayer made out of fat in part. Our whole nervous system made almost entirely of fat. And so our nervous system is what detects pain. And and also oils regulate our immune systems. So it can have a profound effect on our health and well-being. So we really, that's an investment I would really recommend making, is making sure that we're eating healthy fats and whole foods as much as possible. And then when we do choose an oil, that we're using it in a salad, something that we're not heating. And if we do choose to cook with the oil, that we're using the least amount that we need to.
Maybe living to 100 is a popularity contest after all. In 2006, during Blue Zone's first visit to Costa Rica, we met 99-year-old Panchita. In America, only 1 in 7 women over 100 can even take care of themselves. Panchita not only lives alone, she splits log and clears the bush with an enormous machete. And last November, when she turned 100, the entire village celebrated with her. We started our day by following Panchita's 80-year-old son as he biked to her house to check up on her, as he does every morning at around 7. Panchita had already been up since 4 and was busy sweeping the jungle floor outside of her house. She invited us in to sit and talk. Her energy was contagious, and much of what she said was followed by a whooping cry of joy. I learned that she's actually of Cuban descent, a niece of the famous Cuban revolutionary Antonio Macedo. Like most Nicoyans, she had had a hard life, usually waking at 3 each morning to make tortillas and raise her 4 boys alone. But despite the hardship, she famously extended hospitalities to travelers and sabaneros, or cowboys, who pass through town. She says she greets strangers as friends she hasn't met yet, with a hug or a warm handshake. As we talked, Panchita had an endearing habit of touching my arm to make a point. She returned even the smallest compliment with a blessing. And of course, then there was that magic laugh. She's still popular. On any given afternoon, a half a dozen friends will show up to visit or just help out. Her young neighbor, Luis, always stops by at 5 to put the chickens away. And it's not as easy as it looks. Panchita headed into her kitchen. She stoked her fogón, the traditional chorotego clay oven, fried eggs, seasoned her beans with garlic and onions, and then cut fresh cheese.
It seemed like a huge dinner for such a small woman, but we soon discovered
She made food for us.
it really humbled me to receive food from such a poor woman. "Food gives life," she shouted. "You must eat." We convinced her that she and Luis needed the food worse than we did. We left at 6 o'clock. By 7, she would be in bed. She'd pray for a half hour and then sleep. I've interviewed more than 200 centenarians on 4 continents, and one of the characteristics common to all of them is that they're all very likable people. They're interested and interesting. They possess compassion and an ability to laugh. I don't know if they are born with this quality or learn it, but it is clearly tied to their longevity. One Harvard study, in fact, shows that seniors with strong social connections are 3 times more likely to live another decade than loners are. There's a saying in Nicoya, the richest man is the one who needs least. Panchita's wealth comes from giving from the heart, and the people drawn to her generosity and spirit.
Living longer, better. Blue Zones.